We know you love us, but the information on our podcast is provided for educational and entertainment purposes only. I understand I'm both an LPC and an LMFT. However, this is not intended as a substitute for professional services of any kind. If you or anyone you know needs professional help, please seek mental health services. It's Emma.
Hey, it's Zorric.
Host of the Day podcast, and we are very excited to have this show for you guys today.
We are.
Yes.
Why?
Because we have this really cool guest.
Who is he?
Who loves nachos, and I think I might love nachos more than he does, but I mean, we'll get into that in a minute. So he's a dating coach and relationship expert whose name is Spencer Burnett.
But how do we know Spencer? Isn't there some... how did we get a hold of Spencer? There's a connection, right?
Yes, because of the love of my life, whose name is Brian Howie.
Oh, really?
It's all coming
I guess, yeah, there's a story there for sure.
There is a story there for sure. You were on his podcast, the Great Love Debate podcast, and it was you and, oh my gosh, the angry therapist, Kim. And it was like an all-male episode.
Right.
And it was I told Brian, I said, this is one of my favorite episodes. And I said, and then you started talking about nachos. And I said, and I was like, am I hungry or am I horny? And I can't tell.
You're just horny.
Maybe I was just horny and then I got hungry. I don't know.
The idea was for both. When those two things marry together, that's when the magic happens.
Right. So we'll talk about that, about your story later. Yeah, for sure. Because
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So you can find us. There's so much to talk about with Spencer, but you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe and review if you like what you hear. If you have a question or topic you want us to talk about, please send us an email at hello@datepodcast.com. And we're also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything else at @datepodcast. So.
Yes.
Now, for the fun stuff, what do you have, Emma, for us today?
Of course, I have to start with Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Because that's been my obsession lately.
Oh.
You guys, he just messed up on the soundboard, and I'm really happy about it.
I'm sorry.
So, one of the things that I'm really... So, Game of Thrones is about 12 days away. By the time this episode releases, it's 12 days away. And I'm like... happy and excited, and I'm also really scared because that means once it starts, like, it's gonna stop, it's gonna end. I signed up a group of friends for trivia. So 420, everybody, Geeks Who Drink is hosting nationwide Game of Thrones trivia.
Oh, nice.
So look them up at geekswhodrink.com. I've already signed up for mine. My name's the greatest. I can't talk about it until after.
Okay. Does it have to do with nachos?
No, it does not have to do with nachos. Once I say it, you guys are gonna be like, that's clever, and I'm gonna be like, thank you.
But the question is, does Spencer watch Game of Thrones?
Yes, Spencer, do you watch Game of Thrones?
So I do not watch Game of Thrones, and I know what you're gonna tell me. It's an amazing show. You have to watch it. That is exactly why I don't. I have an obsessive compulsive personality, so when I get into something, it's hard to reel myself out of it.
Yeah, that's true.
So for the safety of my career and the relationships with my friends and family, I try not to get into too many TV shows. Yeah,
I tried pacing myself at the beginning of the year of watching maybe 1 or 2 episodes a day. That didn't happen.
Yeah, and it's not really a good cuddle type TV show.
Well, in our last episode, we decided that it could be a great
It could, but you're
episode.
so into it, and there's killing and
which is great cuddling material.
Well, a dude is having sex with his aunt, and it's just weird stuff like that.
Ah, you just gave a spoiler.
Oh, did he?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Spencer.
Well, I guess it's now not worth me even starting. Way to go.
What else you got, Emma?
So speaking about shows that you can obsess over, I actually did sort of obsess over it, and I finished the show this past week. I started on Monday, I think, and I finished Wednesday. Because I couldn't stop watching it. I was just I can't wait.
And the show is?
Called The Umbrella Academy.
Oh, it's so good.
It is so good. It's on Netflix.
I love that show.
And I was was watching that show, and I'm thinking the first like 2 episodes, and I'm not really looking at the credits, and I'm like, you know what? This reminds me of My Chemical Romance, because in high school I loved MCR, like I loved them so much. I'm like, this is reminding me like of My Chemical Romance, like the mood, but sort of like a Dick Tracy, like really dark, like Sin City. I'm like, man, I love this so much. And then I started doing research on it, and Gerard Way, who is the lead singer of My Chemical Romance, wrote the comic books, and he's a producer for the show.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'm like, well, that makes sense then.
Yeah. So does Spencer watch this show too, or?
I do not watch that show.
Okay.
I tend to watch shows only that like my parents might watch, or my girlfriend might watch, or my brother, so I can tag along and and be part of the group. But I don't lead the way with any shows because, like I said, I get in trouble. It's like crack to me.
Yeah, like I Love Lucy. Did your parents watch that? My parents did.
My parents were more so into like the Brady Bunch.
Oh,
like,
okay.
My dad is all about that. I've seen every episode. Marcia getting her nose smashed and all types of stuff.
Yeah, those are some good times back then.
Yes.
Dating, I think, was easier back then. Do you think?
I think it was different back then.
Yeah.
I hear stories from my dad's friends and my uncles and stuff, and it seemed like you could be a lot more direct.
Yes.
But they didn't have as many options back then. So opportunity, like when you have more opportunity, the game kind of changes. And I think that's the biggest difference these days.
I agree with that.
I think. Do you have anything else, Emma?
No.
Okay, so great. That's a great segue into Spencer.
Yes, Spencer.
So Spencer, I saw a couple of your videos, and there's one about being a dating expert, and how come you're not an expert in dating. And that was like a really great video for me. When did that come out, by the way? Was that a while back?
Yeah, I think that was a while back. So I'm not really recalling. I got a handful of videos on my channel.
Yeah.
Which one was that? What was that about?
It was about people ask you the question like, why are you still single if you're a dating expert?
Yes, I remember that one.
Yes.
I get asked the same thing. It's like, you've never been married. Like, how can you say that you're a family and marriage therapist? And it's like, well, it's a lot. When you have a couple inside the session with you, you can definitely see from the outsider perspective, like what's happening and what's not helpful.
Yeah,
So
definitely. So Spencer, where are you from?
I'm from Chicago originally,
Okay.
and I'm still here too, but I travel a bunch.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're born and raised.
Yep, born and raised.
Big family.
I got two siblings, older brother, younger sister, so I'm smack dab in the middle, which explains all the attention I require. But I've got a large extended family. Both my mom and my dad have 4 siblings. So grew up with a big family for sure.
Oh yeah, so like big Christmas and Thanksgiving and all that, right? Lots of cool times. So when you were like younger, were you sort of the suave guy picking up a lot of women? Did you kind of know more about relationships than everyone else did? Because I think that you should, right? Or did you? Or I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of dating coaches started from a position to where they were really shy, and then they had to overcome this, big hurdle of relationships. And for me, I always really got along with women and other people. So I was the kid that was always outgoing, charismatic, super friendly. And I have a special ability to reverse engineer success into simple steps. Mm-hmm. And so, what
do you mean by
about
that?
2000, what's that?
What do you mean, like reverse? What did you reverse something?
Reverse engineer.
There we go. Thank you.
To make it easy to understand, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
So I can take someone who's kind of natural at something and see like the end result that they get, and then break it down from the finish point all the way to the beginning. And then see what simple linear steps it takes to get to that point. Mm. So, when I first started coaching, I was teaching sex moves to guys, and then it kind of started reverse engineering, where it's like you can press the right buttons, but if you're not connecting with her heart and with her mind, then it really doesn't matter what you're doing on a technical level. And then it's like, well, if she's not excited and comfortable, and she doesn't trust you before you get into bed, then again, it's still not going to work. So I just kind of kept backing it up until it got to the point of what type of guy you have to be to attract the woman that you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really great because You guys are so hard to decipher, I guess, but Spencer, can teach everyone how to do that. But
well, I gotta say the same thing about men. I think that both men and women are difficult to decipher, which is why like we have issues like dating in the first place. It's because a lot of people like pretend that they can read minds or think that they can read someone else's mind and think that they're like, oh my gosh, he doesn't like me because instead of like reaching out for my hand, he put his hand in his pocket. That means he doesn't like me, And so we take those little things, both men and women do that. And then we kind of like really like hone in on them or like, they don't like me for all of these reasons, which is not the truth. We're just like making this up in our mind.
Yeah. So Spencer, I want to take a step back. So what made you decide to become a coach? Were you always in this industry or what was the defining moment?
I started in fitness coaching when I was 15 years old. That's when I had like my first paid client. Mm-hmm. And I was in the fitness industry until about 2009. And my gift was really getting people to shift their subconscious so they can effortlessly behave in a way that supports their goals. So essentially NLP, if you guys are familiar with NLP.
No.
Neuro-linguistic programming, something like Tony Robbins talks about that, right?
Yep, essentially it's computer programming for the human mind. And I was fortunate enough to learn how to program the human mind at 8 years old. And so like with that programming, learning how to, program my own mind to where my internal reality affected my external reality as opposed to the other way around. And my like love and connection with people, it was just a natural fit for me to be a mentor, guide, and coach. So I started in the fitness industry, had a successful company for a handful of years. During the last recession, my company went under, and then I just wanted to start something new. I was in the fitness industry for over 12 years. And that's when I got into dating.
I gotcha. But how do you get into dating? Because there's so many other industries. I know, Emma, I don't know if you've seen some of his videos, but he talks about like improving yourself, right, Spencer, before anything else. Because if you're not ready internally, then, you're
right.
Yeah, it's not fair to the other person, right?
Right.
Yeah, I got into the dating to help men connect with women. I always would hear from women that was friends with or that I was dating, like, oh, there are no good guys out there. And then I would go hang out with all of my friends and their friends. I'm like, wow, these are great guys. Like, there is a big disconnect between the men that I know and the women that I know, and they both think that the others don't exist. And so that is really what compelled me to really break down what each side was looking for and connect the dots. And so in 2009, I kind of started my journey of helping guys do that. And, I didn't have any certification, no education, no crazy success stories or testimonials. I just started to dive into my own life and the lives of, some close friends and some people that, that I knew were struggling with this.
What were some of the things that you uncovered about yourself?
What's that?
What were some of the things that you uncovered about yourself, like in your struggles?
One of the big turning points for me is I was actually married for 2 years. I was with the same girl from 15 years old to like 23.
Wow.
And then after we got divorced, and it was actually a pretty clean break, no kids or anything, or lawyers or anything. I got an opportunity to date like my childhood crush. And I was making good money. I was in great shape. I owned a business, and like we had history. We trusted each other, but there was no spark. And I was like, if I check all the boxes and she's still not into me, like what am I missing? And that was really what like kind of ignited the fire for me to like look inside of myself of like, it's got to be more than just like, proper logistics and attributes. Like there has to be a fire spark and a trust developed. And that's what started my journey.
Yeah. So was it a mutual spark that was missing? Like yourself too didn't feel that as well? I mean, no.
No. I professed my love to her after we went on a date. And I remember being in the car, and then, I told her, I was like, hey, we've been spending a lot of time together and I'm really starting to like you. And there was this pause. And I was like feeling pretty confident, but a little unsure. And she says, yeah, I just really see you like one of my good girlfriends.
Oh.
And I was like, I'm like, yo, we were talking about going to Mexico together. Really? Like, what were you thinking?
Yikes.
Yeah. And so I was like, wow, it makes sense on paper, but still, like, this isn't working. So there's another element to this. And what was missing was like seduction, like the process of captivating someone's intrigue and developing a narrative between two people instead of just being like, hey, you check my boxes, I check your boxes, let's make this work.
Yeah, and so in the video I watched, one of the videos I watched, you talk about ending it. Like, men don't know when to end it, or people in general, because they kind of stay on for like a couple months longer or years longer and don't end it when they should. How did you end that divorce, or what was the tipping point? How did that happen?
We started dating really young, and as we started evolving into adults, it turned out that I was a really happy-go-lucky extrovert, and she was more of an introvert that saw a little bit more negativity in the world. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. People that are more skeptical and negative, like, they could be good problem solvers, but it just wasn't compatible. And I remember we went to therapy for 6 months, like Monday her, Tuesday me, Wednesday us. Like, we really worked at it. And at the point when my therapist said, hey man, like, some people are just negative, and that's just the way, and it's okay. And if that's not for you, man, then you got to make some choices. And it was at that point where I was like, you know what, we're young, we don't have any kids, we kind of screwed up the relationship, but we don't have to screw up the divorce. And actually, the divorce was the smoothest part of our relationship. We really did it right. Like, no attorneys, like, no arguing. It was an amicable split.
Gotcha. So after the divorce, what happened? So you were like, because whenever I've been single I'm dating somebody now, but I was single for a good 2 or 3 years, and I was just at party mode. Like clubs, bars, getting drunk.
I think I'm still there.
You're still there.
I'm still there.
But Spencer, like, were you there too, or did you kind of go to yourself?
I mean, I was single for the first time since I was 15.
Jeez.
Wow.
How old were you when this? 23, right?
I was 23. I was making a couple $100,000 a year. I had a full-time staff running my business. So I really had a lot of opportunity. So I remember I took about 2 months off of work. I would go in for like 2 hours a day, and I renovated my house. And I made it into like just a stellar bachelor pad. And for about 2 years, for about like 9 months, I was living the life. And then I got into a relationship for about 2 years. And then once me and her broke up, that's when I started the dating coaching.
So when you were single, is that when you kind of honed your skills and kind of were more practice your philosophies or put them together?
Absolutely. Like it was after that situation with the girl that I had a thing for, I realized, like, I need to apply my creativity. Like, I need to create a narrative between me and a woman, and not just show up and try to impress her. Because it's all about the story. Women fantasize more through the narrative than they do through like the visual. Like, women read romance novels, men watch porn. And even the porn, actually, when I talked to them, I asked like what type of porn they watch, and a lot of them watch the entire thing that has a storyline where guys tend to fast forward just to the part they like. And so once I realized that it's all about the story that you create, then I started having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and that's hard. It's hard getting into that dating scene when you're first single. Were you at the was this the era where there were dating apps when you were single? Did you try any of those?
So I did. So when I very first started, trying to date, like, I was still a little wounded from the divorce, and still not ready. And I tried. there were no dating apps at the time, because this was like just as the iPhone came out. But there were, like Match.com and stuff like that. And I ended up getting catfished by a girl named Julie. You know what you did, Julie. You know what you did, because I'm in Chicago. I had talked to this girl like a handful of times. Her pictures, she was gorgeous. And this was before FaceTime, so we didn't really have that opportunity to see each other. And she was like, lived in Milwaukee, and she's like, come to Summerfest. So Milwaukee is about 90 minutes away from Chicago. So
that's not bad. Okay.
I drive up there, and I'm ready to like meet her up there, and I find myself, she's like, oh yeah, I'm by the entrance, come see me. And then she kind of just kept like jerking me around, and it ended up with me like 3 a.m, super drunk, calling her 10 times over, being like, where are you? I thought you wanted to see me. Oh, it was a mess.
So you didn't get to see her?
What's that?
You didn't get to see her?
No, I somehow found out like who she really was, and she was not as attractive as her original pictures.
How did you find out?
Oh man, I mean, this was a long time ago,
right?
So I turned 36 next week. So yeah, this is 13 years ago. So I believe I looked up her email address and then found some social media, and I confronted her on it. So another weird thing happened where she like disappeared for a week and said she didn't have her phone and her friend had some catastrophe. Just some bullshit. Yeah, and so I called her on it, and then she disappeared. So I take a very different approach to online dating to make sure that whole catfish or the semi-catfish thing doesn't happen again. It's 2 types.
So what do you recommend guys do then to not get catfished?
And women.
Sorry.
And women.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because y'all be doing it too. Don't be acting like y'all all innocent.
Absolutely. Well, there's 2 types of catfishes. There's one where someone is posing as a completely different person. You're using another human's pictures, right? That's like the legit catfish. And then there's a semi-catfish where they're your pictures, but they're altered. They might be from a long time ago. They might be, they might be doctored a little bit, or they might be just from that perfect angle where they look, a little bit more presentable. So my suggestion is, as you're on an online, dating app, whether it's Tinder, Match.com, anything in between, you want to be sure that you get their social media, get their Instagram, get their Facebook, so you can see that they're a real person.
Oh, and I hate doing that though. I don't want people to see my social media yet. And it's for me, it's because like I don't want you to be a creeper on my stuff.
Well, in the day that we live in today, it's like they can Google search your name.
No, I Google search my name all the time, and then I always ask Google to take stuff away. Like that's what I do.
Okay.
Well, do you do what Spencer does? Do you look up people before you go on dates?
I had to stop doing that, and I think I've said that before. I had to stop doing that because I would become like really like
obsessive
about it, and I'd be like, who's this, what's this, and then like I did it like it got to the point where I didn't want people to know that I was doing it, because like if I slip something in the conversation, it's like, you've been Facebook stalking me or whatever, and I was like, oh, my bad. My bad.
Yeah. So, but I think I recommend that like everyone should kind of do a quick Google search, because it takes like 10 seconds. And you can tell if they're a criminal.
LinkedIn. Maybe your LinkedIn should be like, everybody should have a LinkedIn, and, a little safer.
Yeah.
It's not too private.
What's more important than all of that is a FaceTime conversation.
Yeah.
So that's ultimately what I'm trying to get to. This does a couple things. One, you can see that they're a real person and that they are who they say they are, and like you actually get to interact with them face to face, and they can see your mannerisms, your facial expressions. They can see, it's just a more connected communication than just texting until you meet up.
Right.
It seems really risky to me.
So how long do you wait to ask for that FaceTime communication?
As soon as there's rapport.
Gotcha.
So I mean, that could be after 4 or 5 back and forths. I've done FaceTimes within 10 minutes of texting them. It's because it's kind of like a date, but it's safe. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no you get to be face to face, but there's no opportunity for groping.
Yeah. So let's say you do the FaceTime, and she's not what you're looking for. What happens next?
Or he is not what you're looking for.
Or he.
Right, yes.
No, I'm joking. We can focus on the male.
Well, what happens next is you just saved yourself a Saturday night.
There you go. That is true.
And you can still remain like in contact with that person. Like you don't have to be dating someone to have a meaningful relationship with them.
Right.
Yeah.
So they might just get filtered into like just being an acquaintance or a good friend.
How do you have that conversation with someone though? Like how do you recommend for like a guy to tell the girl, along the lines of, you're not what I expected you to look like, based on your pictures, and because of that, like I'm not interested in you.
We asked this question of like, how do we have these difficult conversations with the opposite sex without hurting their feelings? And the reality is sometimes conversations hurt people's feelings. Well,
as a therapist and a counselor, yes, like you can only do what you can for yourself, right? So if I'm telling you, Spencer, that I like, or Zorric, like, you don't look like your pictures, like I'm telling you what I need to tell. And so for me, it's like the other person's going to react the way they're going to react, because those are their feelings, those are their emotions, they're valid because that's their reaction to the situation. But you have to, like, as the person, like having to have that conversation, like you need to find a way to have that conversation.
But the question posed to Spencer is how? Like how as men do we, what do we say, Spencer?
Right. So like what is like a technique that helps the man, like you have that conversation regardless of the woman's like reaction?
Okay. So what you say is part of it, and the way that you deliver it is another one. So I would say, hey, I really enjoyed talking to you today. But I feel a little bit misled by the pictures that you had on your profile. And it's not that I'm judging you by your pictures, but if you're not confident enough to like really display who you are, that's just not something I'm looking for in a person. Like I want someone that embraces their true self, and I really feel like those pictures were misleading. And so they might ask them, like, well, what do you mean by that? Mm-hmm. And then if they ask, I'm going to tell them. So it's like, when you take pictures where you just see the top of your forehead and eyebrows and you're pointing it down, that makes you, that covers up your hairline, and that makes you look thinner than you really are. A lot of times, and I can speak for like looking at women's profiles, because that's all that I look at. There's when a lot of times that when you're showing your big cleavage, sometimes you're hiding like how much you actually weigh. Sometimes when all of your pictures are you just smiling with no teeth. Well, it's like, I want to see fully who you are. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here because I want to see you. That's what a relationship is. Mm-hmm. So when you're hiding something, it's just like, that's not really the type of relationship I'm looking for. So
yeah, I feel like most people just don't say anything about it and just kind of just ghost, right? Right. But I think what Spencer is saying is that's like that's gonna help the next person, because
it helps with the growth.
Yeah, because the person that's receiving that feedback is hopefully will change. I don't know. Maybe she might, or he might.
Right.
But yeah, that's a big deal, because what do you think about Spencer catfishing on like the bio? Like, let's say someone lies about their education or their, I don't know, what they do, how many kids they have. Before. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. And like you said, a lot of people will just ghost somebody. But you know what? I have found that having a confrontational conversation in a graceful, compassionate way can a lot of times build a lot of deep connection very quickly. So you can really turn that into an opportunity to like really connect with someone, even if you don't plan on dating them. But it's like we spend so much time putting out this persona, and when we don't address it, we're really allowing it. And so I'm really into like compassionate confrontation.
Yeah, and why do we put out that persona? Like why?
You know, we just
remember we're not supposed to ask why questions.
Oh, okay.
What is the purpose of us putting out those personas?
Yes.
We at the core of it all, we all just want to be accepted.
Yeah.
That's it.
For sure. Because it goes Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
It always comes back to that.
So Spencer knows a lot about dating and a lot about just like your inner self. So I know we talked about you have a business. So what is your business and what are you doing? Like, how are you helping men?
So I help men be the type of guy that like every woman loves, so they can be with the woman of their choice. And that really starts with being the type of guy that you yourself would want to hang out with. And when you have that joy and acknowledgement and confidence of yourself, what that does is it creates a seductive vortex around yourself where you're loved and kind of accepted by everyone, and you know how to be social when you're out interacting with people. And then in that social vortex, like I said, the women that you are most attracted to or that you desire the most kind of like are pulled into that vortex just like every other human. And then that's when you start, flirting and escalating and, asking women out on dates. So it's more of a, an inside out approach as opposed to like how a lot of guys look at it. They look at it like, game hunting. It's like they lurk in the shadows of a bar or a nightclub, and then they're like, there's a girl there, go get her. What do I say? What do I do? How do I get her back home? It's like, man, like you don't just meet women at bars and nightclubs. Like literally you can meet women everywhere. It's about the type of person you show up as wherever you go.
Mm-hmm. And is that so I also noticed you talk about like career. Is that focusing on your career also, or is that part of that confidence building?
Absolutely. I initially start working with men when it comes to their confidence and ability to meet women everywhere that they go. But ultimately, men are seeking dating advice because we crave connection. We feel like we're lonely. And ultimately, that feeling of loneliness we're seeking to find out through a relationship with a woman, when in fact, like, what we truly want is to feel connected to ourselves. And that's where it gets more into, like, personal development, self-discovery, your career, your passion, and who you are as a person. So all of those things, including your career, are so important to meeting women and finding your person, because you have to have something in your life that's more important to you than going out and picking up chicks. All right, because otherwise you just kind of seem desperate.
Like what? For example, like what? Like hobbies or work or?
Yeah. Hobbies, work. Some type of if you're going to law school, then that is your main focus. If you're building a business, if you're writing a book, if you're whatever it is that you're really passionate about, like there should be something that you have in your life that really, really lights you up. That is your primary focus. If your primary focus is just like talking to women, well, that is a fertile ground for codependency.
Oh yeah, and also what I hear a lot is from women is that I broke up with him because he had no ambition. But finding something you're passionate about, obviously you seem ambitious, right?
Right, but I think like the ambition piece for me is like about the saliency in life. And so let's take my ex, for example. I felt like he was salient where he was, and I was not in my life.
Using big words, what does salient mean?
So he was okay. Like okay. He was fine being where he was. And which was great for him, it didn't match what I needed, because I was like, I wanted to grow more. Like, you know, like I was looking for a different career. I was looking for a different path. I was kind of like finding for other things, and he was fine where he was. And so for me, like that was not compatible in that moment, because whenever I did ask about like, what are aspirations? Like, what are you passionate about? In my like therapeutic way, it was always like, well, I'm okay where I am. It's like, do you ever like want to grow out of this? Or like, do you ever want to explore more? And it's like, no, I'm fine. And I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah. Do you hear that?
Match me.
Spencer, do you hear about that too? Do you talk to women and ask them about their you know, their, I guess, sort of pitfalls and things that they run into while dating?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I really feel like it's the same for both men and women. And, you know, I like what you said, Emma, is that if you got two people that just love, you know, sitting around, watching TV, having meals every day, and getting into that like rhythm together, fantastic. But if you guys aren't on the same page about like what fuels your soul, then it's just not going to happen. Now, that doesn't have to be the same thing, but what my girlfriend is into turns me on, even though it's not my particular passion. What I'm into turns her on, even though it's not her particular passion. So then when we geek out on the things that we naturally love, like the other person may not be able to participate as much, but we love watching the other person. And so that's a good fit.
And it's just like, I love seeing a guy like in his natural like state, right? Like what he's passionate about, and really seeing him like just become like the person, you know, and like really fit into this role. Like you're right, like that is a turn on, because you're just like, man, like look at all that confidence. Like I'm ready to take that home with me.
So after I found my passion, let's say my passion is volleyball, because one of our guests is Kale. He loves volleyball, but he's very serious. He has a team, and you know he just loves it. What's next? Or I'm in law school. What's next after that?
So what's next is like, finding that passion and finding stability, because that's another one too. Like if there are, in all the areas of your life, your passion, your finances, your work, your health, if you're not a C+ in all of those, then you need to put dating aside and work on yourself and get that up. And that's totally okay. Everyone, has their time, but you got to make sure that you're adequate in every area of life before you start sharing it with another person.
Right. As therapists and counselors, we always say, like, if you want to be married, you can get married. If that's your ultimate goal, like you can find someone that you're going to marry. It's just like, that's, you don't want just a marriage. Like, the other things that like come along with it, that it is that you want too.
Right. So Spencer, if I'm living in my parents' basement, should I be dating?
Shut up, Zorric.
Well, dating with the intention of simply having fun, figuring out what type of person you're looking for. Sure. Dating with dating a woman that has the intention of building a long-term relationship in a marriage, I think that's unfair to her. So if you are dating, you got to make sure that within the first 3 or 4 dates that you guys get on the same page as to what you're looking for out of your dating life at the time. So yes, you can date, but make sure you're not wasting anyone's time,
Yeah. So on that date, when do those questions come out? Like first date?
First date I think is totally acceptable.
Jeez, gosh, that's so soon. That gives me a heart. That makes me sweat a little.
But why? Is this too serious?
Well, because it comes down to like what I do as a profession. That I'm not here to have a therapy session with you. Mm-hmm. Like I left my job. I'm not at work right now. I'm here to like have fun. This is the first date. Like I'm not gonna have this like serious, deep conversation with you when I'm getting to know you. Like no. I'm not a fan of it. I'm also like a mental health professional, so like my job is my job, and once I leave my job, like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, and you can answer that question in one sentence and then continue the date. You know, you don't have to get into it.
Right.
But so you can say it's like, hey, right now I'm, I just got out of a relationship right now, and so I want a date to really figure out what it is that I'm looking for, and so I'm not looking for anything, too serious. I'm not looking for a long-term relationship, but maybe something that's committed.
I'd probably make a joke like, cool. Oh, I didn't know this was a therapy session. I thought I left work already.
Yeah, but I tend to ask those questions early, Spencer. I get down to it because I think if I can ask those questions and maybe you can weed out people earlier, right? Why go on the third, fourth, fifth date if I don't even know if she wants kids, and that's really important to me. I don't have kids and I want some soon, and I'm in Spencer's age range and I've never been married. And I'm not in a serious relationship. Getting there. But yeah, I asked those questions early. And so that first date, what does that include, Spencer? Because I know mine. Mine are I go to dinner, we talk. Typically that's it, and then they never call me back.
What is Zorric doing wrong?
Yeah, what am I doing wrong?
Well, for a first date, I like to start something casual,
like nachos?
And something that gives her an out if it's not going very well. I want her to have an opportunity to leave early because, if she's not into it, then she's not into it. But that also gives you an opportunity to have a second date immediately after the first one. So one that I do, I did this one in the West Loop a lot of times. I would go to this place called Sushi Pink. It's a cute little sushi place in the West Loop of Chicago, and that no one ever goes to. So we'd start there, and then we'd have some sushi, and if it went well, I'd be like, hey, do you want to go over to Soho House and grab some tea, some coffee, maybe a drink? It's like, yeah. Then I'd go to Soho House, and then after that, it would be like, hey, do you want to go grab some nachos? And this is where the whole nachos. and I would be like, oh my gosh, there are these nachos, and I'd go into my whole thing. And then she'd be like, sure. And then right next door is a place called RM Champagne. It's like a little speakeasy in the back of a restaurant. And I'd be like, hey, you want to go get some macaroons and champagne? Well, now by that time, you've been on 4 separate dates in one single day. And that might have taken, 4 or 5 hours, started at 7 o'clock, ends at 1 a.m. By that time, there's been a lot of scenery change. She's gotten to watch you interact with, waiters, waitresses, hostesses, other people, seen you in a number of different environments. And that builds a lot of rapport and an amazing story in a short amount of time. So that would be my go-to, or one of my go-tos.
Yeah, you're turning on Emma right now. But,
yeah.
but I think from your date's perspective, I think it'll feel like that I've known you longer.
Yeah.
Right? And there's more. It's exciting. It's not just like a sit-down type, like you said, interview type date. So that's a very good idea. Wow.
Yep. Zorric's like, I'm going to write this down.
So
he's out of the game. He might bring it back. I don't know.
So Spencer, what do you do in regards to kissing on the first date? What's your philosophy on kissing on the first date?
I'll tell you what my philosophy is not, first of all. Okay. My philosophy about kissing a woman at the end of a date, you do not do that.
Oh, really? This is news.
The first kiss should not be at the end of the date because it's there's so much anticipation. You're walking her to her car, you're walking her to her door, and at least 2 minutes before that, she's thinking about it, oh, she's gonna kiss me, and he's thinking, okay, when do I do it? And it feels like a a death walk. It's just anticipation. So I suggest that you kiss a girl in the middle of a date. So here's how my mid-date kiss goes. Mm-hmm. Let's say we're at Soho House sitting on some couches. Okay. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna wait for a break in the conversation to say, okay, I'm gonna get up or into the bathroom really quick. I'll be right back. As I get up, okay, I go lean towards her face and attempt to kiss her right on the corner of her mouth. Now, one of 3 things is gonna happen. Okay. She's either gonna, turn her face and you kiss her on the cheek, which it just looks like you're being a sweet boyfriend there. Mm-hmm. No big deal. she's going to turn her face and actually kiss you, winner, right? Or she's going to pull away. Now, if she pulls away, the reason that is so painful is because, like, you got to sit there and be like, and, like, explain yourself, right? Instead, you go for the kiss, and she kind of turns away, and in motion, you just keep on walking by. Now she's got to sit and think about it. And you get to go to the bathroom and kind of, like, run away, hit the reset button, and come back and start the conversation. And so you take like this little intermission in the break after, like, worst case scenario, she turns her face, and you kind of get to reset. I'm telling you, I have given this suggestion to many, many men, and this is what you call a never fail.
That is super
Only three
clever.
things can happen, and no matter what happens, you don't look and feel like you're rejected.
Emma, get over here. Let me try this on you.
Heck no, you better get away from me.
No.
You better stay put.
But with that rejection, oh my gosh, that sucks. Whenever, because I've been rejected for a kiss, but I always wait till the last minute. But I always make sure to like have some, hold her hand first. Do you like suggest that first, or you just go out and go for the kiss?
I like the mid-date kiss.
Oh, you like that?
I do. I like that a lot better because then if I'm like nope, then
Yeah, because I feel like if I'm not like touchy-feely at first,
right,
I feel like I'm throwing a Hail Mary at the end of the date. So maybe I'm doing it all wrong, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should try the mid-date.
And then if it's just like on the cheek, it's still very sweet, which I really appreciate. If it's on the lips, then it's on the lips.
Yeah. So at that, so let's say she pulled away. Like, how do you recover from that throughout the date?
So you de-escalate. So if you try to kiss her on the face and she's not having it, then fine, I'm going to hold your hand. And then let's say we're walking to the next place and she doesn't want to hold hands. I'm like, and I've had women do this to me. Where I'm like, I literally, like, kind of in a cute way, I'm like, you want to hold hands? And she's like, no. And I was like, well, then how are people going to know that we're on a date? Like, how's everyone going to know that?
You're so smooth, Emma.
and so it's like she's trying to pull away by playing hard to get. Well, I'm being forward, but not pushy.
Right.
So I'm not like, well, you should hold my hand. What the heck? I bought you dinner. No, it's like, well, hey, how's everyone going to know, like, I'm totally into you? And then
you put it back on them. That's really clever.
Absolutely. And then I de-escalate again. I'm like, so do you want to go just arm in arm? And she's like, and so maybe she'll go arm in arm with me. And she's like, and let's say she says no. And I'm like, okay, so we're just going to walk side by side. I'm like, well, then people are going to think that we're married and we don't like each other, So it's like, so I'm going to give you a married nickname like Honey Bear, something that's like not sexy.
Gosh, man,
but
the deflection on this is great. Goodness.
and I was like, so I'll just start calling her dear then. And I'm like, but keep your hand in your pocket so we can continue to give everyone the illusion that we're married. And so like whatever she gives me, I'll play with. So it doesn't matter what she gives me, I'm still playing. And that's when you have that attitude with a woman, it's like, oh shit, like no matter what happens here, he's gonna find a way to find joy in it. And hanging around someone with like that, like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's easy to hang out with someone like that.
It is. And I wish dates were all kissing and holding hands, but they're not. So in between that, though, there has to be conversation. Like, what is that? What kind of conversation should you have on these dates?
So a lot of people focus on the type of questions, and a lot of dating experts tell you to shy away from the basic questions. So what do you do? How long have you been doing that? How did you get into that? How many brothers and sisters do you have? Like, and all that. And I actually think that those are great questions, like discovery questions to figure out what a person's about, what they're doing with their life, and how they got there is awesome. The key is having conversation the right way. So we tend to ask a question, get an answer, answer the question ourselves. How many brothers and sisters do you have? I've got 3. Oh, I've got 2. So what do you do for work? Oh, I'm an accountant. Oh, I'm a dating coach. So where do you like? That's the wrong way. What you want to do is you want to ask a question, get an answer, play with the answer, like give your opinion on it, make a joke about it, and see how long you can keep that thread going. And then when you hit an awkward silence, then ask the next question. That allows you to ask questions that are very common, have an interesting conversation, leverage awkward silences as opposed to trying to avoid them with, or just having an awkward conversation in general, right? And then it adds color and context to the conversation and opens up new threads.
So, like, what if she's just boring? And let's say I'm the one talking the whole time, or maybe it's me. I'm just talking about topics she doesn't like. Like, how do you, what do I do about that?
So there's an exercise that I do with all my guys called conversation cards. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we take a random noun generator. There's one, on the internet, just search random noun generator. And it puts up a word, and then you've got to talk about that word for 60 seconds and then ask a question to the person after that. Now, what this does is it teaches you how to have a conversation with someone without them having to talk. And so if you can do that, then all you need is a one-word answer from someone to keep an engaging conversation. And so when you require them to speak in order for it to be interesting, well, that just means that you're not that great of a conversationalist. But if you can, to someone who's a little shy or socially awkward, then you become a social safety net for them, and they're going to love hanging around you because you're so easy to talk to.
Yeah, and so in your classes, you have multiple people. It's not just one-on-one coaching, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I do group coaching classes, and I do one-on-one coaching, and I do workshops and immersions and stuff like that. But the group coaching course, we meet on Monday nights at 8 o'clock Central Time, and we do it over Zoom. So I can literally see up to 100 guys if I want to, and we actually bring in live beautiful, charismatic women in there for them to practice these conversation skills. So when they get into the real world, they're not just applying some philosophy they saw in a YouTube video. Mm-hmm. They're actually applying something that they've mastered in class. Yeah,
and so what is the curriculum? Can you walk me through that or us through that? What is the class about?
So the curriculum is 12 weeks long, and the first step is learning how to get a date by this weekend. And so we give, step-by-step processes of 1, get out of the house, 2, start conversations, and 3, actually escalate that conversation to get a date. And once guys get a hang of that, then once they kind of have built that skill set, then it becomes about lifestyle design. What are you doing on a regular basis that puts you in position to meet the type of women that are specific to the type of women that you're interested in, mm-hmm. and specific to your dating goals. And so as they're doing that and refining these skills, then we start going more into the self-discovery process of building that inner confidence, mm-hmm. and creating that social seductive vortex that draws women in so men don't have to go out and be chasing.
Yeah, so I know that you say you work from the inside out. I think, though, that when you're teaching those conversation skills, you're also doing outside in, right? Because right. When you're working on that conversation, you're teaching them to be confident and to show that in that conversation, because you're right. A lot of us don't know how to have conversations with each other. It's a struggle, or a lot of times we're not comfortable with silence, when silence is a very natural part of the conversation. And so we just feel we have to automatically fill that in. So I think it's great that you're teaching how to have that conversation based on a noun, because I've done it before. It's really difficult to talk about one thing for 60 seconds. It's hard. It can be done. It's hard, though.
Yeah, but on top of, talking about it, I feel sometimes it could be high pressure, right, Spencer? You're on a date, it's your nerves are going, mm-hmm. and, you just met this person, and, how do we deal with, okay, let's say I am an expert now at speaking about a noun, but, how do I deal with the nerves, and of a date?
Okay, well, let's say you're having a conversation, and you get this awkward silence where you kind of just like lose your train of thought. You say, oh, hold on, I just lost my train of thought. I often get intimidated by beautiful women, and you're really good at it. Give me a second real quick.
That is...
I swear, with like average women, I am sharp as a tack, but you are just throwing me out. Give me 1 sec here, you know? So it's like, it
you
is.
You little charmer,
like,
Spencer. You little charmer, dude. Mm-mm.
It's I'm entertained by my own flaws, and I don't take myself too seriously. And that's what a lot of people think. It's like, oh, Spencer, well, they asked me like, hey, what did you say to that girl? It must have been something smooth. It's like, maybe it was, but maybe I totally screwed up. But I framed it in a way that I thought was kind of hilarious. And then actually me failing became more charming than me saying the perfect thing in the first place, you know?
Yeah, because when you fail, I guess it shows that you're real, you know, and you're not perfect and you're more human.
Hannah Montana said nobody's perfect.
She did say that. Well, I think everything you're talking about, Spencer, has to do with self-esteem and confidence. So Emma, like, what did you want to talk about as far as the confidence?
Yeah, so I'm just curious to know, like, how you guide men to get to that point of kind of like what Zorric is talking about, like maybe like routines or tips before the date that kind of get them in that zone of, all right, this is a date. You know, if mistakes happen. And, you know, if this is or the mentality I need to have, this is how I can process it. Like, what are some things that you do with your male clients to guide them and teach them to kind of be in that zone instead of like freaking out?
Yeah, you know, that comes with some like light tips of kind of the things that I've given you today. But what's more useful is when you have, you know, confidence comes from the certainty you have in your belief system, or better known as your identity. And so I take guys through a daily exercise immediately when they start my program called identity imprinting. So for instance, guys who are shy to speak to a woman, or just to speak to a stranger, right? At the beginning of the day, I'll have them use this affirmation saying, I immediately act on my impulse to speak to a beautiful woman. And I have them rate the authenticity of that on a scale of 1 to 5. And then what I have them do, this is kind of the abbreviated version of it, it gets more in depth. But then at the end of the day, I have them do the reflections and write down any evidence that was true. So if they were at the grocery store and some woman was looking at frozen pizzas and they simply just said, hey, that counts. And as you project who you want to be through those affirmations in the beginning of the day, as you visit and collect the evidence, no matter how small it is, that you actually are that person, it starts ingraining into your identity. And so you can do this with any, you know, belief or affirmation, whether it's going on a date with a woman or meeting new women when you go out or being social. So I really look at like where their fears are. I polarize that fear into an affirmation, then I take them through that process. And not only are the results incredible, but they're permanent. And that's lasting results. You know, that type of coaching not only lasts for the 12 weeks you're getting it, but it changes the trajectory of your life.
Right.
Yeah, I noticed that in your videos, you focus a lot about language and affirmations. And I think there was one video about not saying won't. Is that correct? Yeah, because it's negative, right? And that.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's your what's different about you, Spencer, because it's all about how you speak to yourself, because self-talk is very important, right?
Yes.
Super important.
Yeah.
So, okay, so after my date is over, and I'm not sure if it went well, I'm kind of like self-conscious, and I'm not confident that I made a great impression on her. Like, how do I handle that as a man? Do I just call her, or do I text her, or do I, like, what do I do?
So yeah, sending her a text after a date, and making that text relevant to something that you guys talked about, maybe some inside joke, or you know, something just to provoke some type of emotion, is the way to go. Whereas it's like, hey, I really had fun tonight, I hope to see you again. If you guys really hit it off, then that's okay. But if you were kind of unsure, like, again, try to provoke some type of emotion. if you're not sure that she wants to see you again, you might try asking her on a date that's kind of circumstantial. What I mean by that is, instead of like, hey, would you like to go out to dinner on Thursday night? You can say, hey, I'm going to a charity fashion show on Friday night. I was wondering if you wanted to come along with me. That way, if she says no, it doesn't change the course of your life. It's just like, well, I'll ask someone else. Whereas it's a little bit more like high risk all in, when you're like, would you like to go to dinner on Friday? Well, if she says no, well, then I guess I'll just sit at home by myself. It's just a more empowered way to ask for a date.
Yeah, and also we get this a lot from our female listeners and friends. They want to know if let's say they had a date and he doesn't reach out to her, should she reach out to him?
In this day and age, I say yes, because a lot of good guys these days are scared to be forward. And a lot of it has to do with the confusion that they've gotten from from society and the Me Too movement. Like it's exposed guys that are jerks.
Yes.
But what it's done to guys who are a little bit more timid, shy, or confused is it has made them shrink. On the other hand, you got to ask yourself as a woman, is this the type of guy that I want to be with? One that I have to reach out to,
But the thing is, here's my argument on that. Like, I don't like reaching out
Wait,
first.
Emma, the reason why I asked this question is because Emma has asked me this question before.
Yes.
So.
And here, I'm going to play a little devil's advocate. Like, I don't like reaching out. Like, Zorric can verify that. Like, I don't like reaching out first. I don't like asking out first because I think, like, there's certain roles that I think that, for me, like in heterosexual relationships, like guys and girls should take, right? So I think the guy should ask out the girl. However, at the same time, it's like, I think about it, and sometimes I'm like, so like you're saying this, and my brain went into, so except that like, what if he just needs like that little bit of push, and then once he gets that push, like he can take the reins. Like that's a probability. Like that could be a possibility. So what is the purpose of, as a woman, like not making the first move, not knowing that, it could actually work out at the end? And I hate making the first move, so I hate the fact that I'm even asking this, because I want to be like, no, Spencer's right, but no, I feel like there's guys out there that are probably listening to this, like, yeah, we just like maybe just need a little push, and it's not about being lazy, it's not about like not being confident, it's like that fear. It comes from that fear, and fear can paralyze us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you want to know what? A lot of people have asked me like, hey, do you coach women? And I typically say no, because my perspective is it is the guy's job. Guys are like, I just want a woman that will be forward enough to come up to me. That's not her job. Her job is to give you opportunity. Your job is to take the shot. Women show up and give guys opportunity all the time. If you're out at a bar or a party, women aren't going to come up to you and be like, hey, how's it going? What's your name? Women don't flirt that way. Women flirt via proximity and looks. That's how they do it. You'll
That's
notice.
what I did last night.
Yeah.
So like you have to learn the way that she does it, and then you got to pull the trigger. And so I in my heart, I believe like, should a woman call a man after the date? No. But in this day and age, the thing is, if you do, just understand that that you got to come, that for the guy, like you lost some points. So you got to make that up a little bit.
But blah, 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 blah. Hold on. You just said something that just like really rubbed me the wrong way.
What did you say?
What is the purpose of it being my job to protect your ego? Like, screw your ego. I have an ego too. You're not protecting mine, so why do I have to protect yours?
Well, I think, Spencer, you're saying this, if you really like the guy, call him. Is that what you're saying, Spencer?
Because you said you like the girl loses points if she like calls
No, the guy.
No, the guy.
Okay. I'm sorry. I overreacted. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I was like, where did I rub you the wrong way? Like, I'm advocating for women. I was like, I don't know what the antithesis of a feminist is, but I've never talked to one. Not a female one.
She's like purple right now.
Sorry, I thought you said the woman loses points, and I'm like, no, I am not protecting a man's ego.
No, we lose points all day, every day, and that's the problem. So I have one more question for you. I swear we can talk to Spencer for like 30 hours.
I love that we're focused. Like, I know I keep joking about like focusing on women, but I really do think that like men need focus too.
Here's a question for you, Spencer. So there's so many dating apps out there. And I feel like a lot of men are just using dating apps and not going out. Is there some sort of like mix? Let's say men should go out half the time and then use dating apps the other half, or like how do you
balance it?
How do you balance that?
That's a great question, and the answer is not in the balance. Although I'll give you my thought on that. But then I want to give you kind of like the meta idea about meeting people. So the balance is you should be using dating apps during commercials of the sports games or TV shows you're watching, or when you're in the bathroom or waiting for a train or bus. Mm-hmm. That's when you should be using your dating apps. Like spending hours and hours on it. It's just like you're just looking for like a human body on dating apps, where it's like when you meet people in real life, put yourself in a position where people have similar values to you, because then you're going to meet a higher quality match, or a match that's more likely to jive with your way of being and your belief system. It's really about but whether you're meeting someone on a dating app, or you're meeting them in real life, or you're meeting them on Instagram, which is actually how I met my girlfriend.
Oh.
It's all about learning how to be social and start a conversation without expectation, and then learning how to engage with someone for the simple joy of engaging with someone, whether it is for 15 minutes or for the next 100 years of your life. Like finding the craft and the joy in that is the secret, because then online real life dating app is only the medium that you're using. Mm-hmm. And so it's like people say, well, dating apps are so impersonal. Technology is really destroying people's communication styles. No, it's not. It's exposing how shitty everyone was in the first place. Mm-hmm. And so it's not making it worse. It's only exposing. And so when you learn how to be good socially, then you literally can meet people everywhere, through your phone, through friends, through events, through literally walk out the street and walking your dog.
Yeah, one of our guests was like, I meet most of my men at Target. Yeah, remember her?
I remember her.
Yeah, so what Spencer's saying is that just meet people everywhere. Don't focus on your dating apps.
Right.
Yeah, use it in the bathroom.
And use every moment that you can just to like strike up conversations, because wasn't it Kim that was like, you don't worry about the outcome, just like focus on what's happening in the moment.
Were you on the show with Kim Seltzer, Spencer? Was she there?
No, but the name sounds familiar. Was she with Brian Howie?
Yeah.
I may have been on a Great Love Debate with her. So I've done like 10 Great Love Debate shows over the past like 4
Oh my gosh.
So,
oh my gosh, we just did our first.
We did our first last week, but Brian had a lot of good stuff, like good comments about you. He's like, he says you're really good.
I think it was funny because I said, yeah, we're going to have Spencer on the show. He's like, wait, like Spencer Burnett? He's like, he didn't tell me. And I'm like, he doesn't have to tell you everything.
Was he my father? I mean, he's old enough to be my father, but like, come on, Brian.
All right, Spencer. So, oh my gosh, I learned so much. What do you have, Emma? You have one more?
Before we end,
okay.
I think Spencer needs to talk about the nachos.
Okay.
He needs to say it so that our female listeners know exactly what I'm talking about.
I said this to Brian. In every Great Love Debate, in the podcast that we did, like, I'm trying to like bring new material to the thing, and all he's like is like, play Freebird, play Freebird. Like, he just loves the old stuff. All right, so here is the nachos.
You can retire this after our show. It's fine.
So, well, I think I'm doing another Great Love Debate in June or something, and there's no way Brian's letting me step away without doing the nacho thing. So when you ask a woman out on a date, a lot of people are like, well, what's a good first date, right? And really what the date is doesn't matter, because like you can ask her to do something fun and exhilarating, axe throwing, or, go to iFly and do some the indoor skydiving stuff. But it's really about the story. It's about the narrative. And so when you ask a woman out and you say, would you like to go to dinner sometime? Essentially, like what it feels like is you saying like, hey, I'm going to pay about $100 for the permission for you to sit in front of me for 2 hours to see if you want to sleep with me. And that's not really that's not really engaging. But if you invite her into an experience, then that's more captivating. And again, it doesn't have to be something that's over the top horse and carriage types of, rose petal, whatever. It could be something as simple as, asking her to not, out for some nachos. Now, when I ask a girl out for nachos, and I don't just say, would you like to go to dinner with me? I would ask her, like, are you into nachos? Like, do you like nachos? And of course, like, who doesn't like nachos,
exactly.
Right? Well, there is a place in the West Loop of Chicago called Parlor, and they have the best nachos in the city. Second best nachos, sub 51, but I digress. These nachos are individual nacho bites. So every chip has all of the ingredients on top of it. It's not like those bullshit nachos that have a mound of guacamole, cheese, and everything, and then 50 chips underneath it that have nothing on it, right? No, every chip has the same exact toppings on it, and it's got this like barbecue pulled pork that is equal parts sweet, smoky, and savory. And on top of it, a piece of like white cheddar cheese. And on top of that, a pico de gallo with a chipotle aioli with 2 little pieces of avocado right on the top. And like when you put this thing into your mouth, like it starts to melt as you close your mouth onto the nachos, and suddenly there is a dance party of flavors on your palate that are like harmonizing notes of a symphony that creates an experience unlike anything that you've ever had. Is that something that you'd like to do this Thursday?
Yes.
So it's like, so what this does is it creates a visual in a woman's mind. And, as you guys were talking, like language is everything. Language is how we exchange imagery and feelings from one person's mind to the next. And so when you speak in a descriptive way, especially when you're asking out a woman, this does a few things. One, it's like, I don't just want to take you out. I want to share this experience with you. And the second thing is, like, women love men that pay attention to details. Women pay way more attention to the details than guys do. Just watch a man get ready and watch a woman get ready and see how much detail they put into all of that stuff. And so when you are the type of guy that can see, that pays attention to the details and finds joy in the little things, she's like, imagine just how much. If I love, a chipotle aioli and 2 little pieces of avocado on a nacho, and I find that incredible, amazing, and just delicious, imagine how I'm going to feel and articulate when I actually get to know you and spend some time with you, and like how I'm going to speak of you when, we actually get to spend some time together. And so like, this is what seduction is about. It's not, now notice I didn't say anything about her being beautiful or any of that shit. Like, no, I invited her into an experience for us to share together.
Man, I need to go to Chicago and eat some nachos.
I would eat nachos with you too, Spencer, at this point.
Well, fantastic. You guys come to Chicago. Me and my girl will take you guys out for some nachos. And trust me, as good as I made it sound, it's even better.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. The audience is clapping. Okay, Spencer. Oh my gosh. I hung on every word throughout this whole hour and some change. I'm gonna listen to it
writing furious notes.
5 times I'm gonna listen to this thing. But so how can everyone find you?
So you guys can find me, if you want to contact me directly, you can go on Instagram and find me under Spencer Burnett and send me a direct message. I love interacting with my fans on an individual level because I love to go deep. If you guys want to find my dating coaching, you can go to omegamancoaching.com, or you can simply just go to spencerburnett.com. You can also go to my YouTube channel, which is under Spencer Burnett. And I also have a book coming out this spring. So this might be an opportunity for us to do another podcast.
Oh, for sure.
The book is called The Cool Guy's Guide to Romance. So it teaches guys that are already successful in dating and are kind of players, and teaches them how to be a good partner, build a relationship. So turning guys from one night stands to one woman man, to a one woman man.
Nice.
And it's filled with all of the strategies, philosophies, and tips for the first year of your relationship. So, you don't end up being a guy that gets disinterested and starts cheating, or you don't become the type of guy that kind of just like hands his balls over, and then the woman's wondering like, where is the creativity and the fire that I love? It kind of just shrinks. So in my book, I show guys how to build that relationship and apply all their sexuality and creativity to one relationship.
Nice.
I will buy 10 copies of that, and we'll plug the hell out of your book. So you have supporters here.
Yeah,
for sure.
Awesome.
So what did you?
I actually talked to my publicist on Tuesday this week to find out our official launch date. So I'll be sure to let you know.
Let us know. So Emma, what did you learn from Spencer?
Like my love for nachos is reinstated. Like it never goes away, right? I also it's like really important to like. I love that you are teaching men to communicate in a way that is helpful to them and to create those connections with the women that they're dating, because I think that's super important, right? And it's not just like communication in general, like it's very specific things so that they can use it to like continue like learning and growing from those instances. So that was cool. Yeah,
and I like how Spencer's curriculum is just, it's soup to nuts, end to end. Mm-hmm. Right, and he again focuses on language. But I think, Spencer, you should have your curriculum in every high school and college.
Tell me about it. I'm working on it.
Because I wish I knew this when I was first dating in my 20s. I wish I knew all this. In my 20s, I just had no direction, no nothing. So, okay.
It's kind of the exploratory time in life. Your 20s are just to explore.
But if I had Spencer by my side, I would be much better right now.
Oh, okay.
Honestly. So, all right, Spencer.
And we would have had a shit ton of fun for sure.
I believe it.
Lots of nachos for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. That's a show for today.
Yes.
Go ahead, Emma.
You guys can find us on Instagram and Twitter @DatePodcast. You can also send us an email with any questions, comments, concerns at hello@datepodcast.com.
Okay. Again, thank you, Spencer.
Yes, thank you.
And bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.